Okay, folks, welcome back to another episode of the McKinney Podcast, where we celebrate what makes us unique by nature. This is our first episode of another recording block here. Fred, how's it going, man? You ready for this?
Man, you know what? I can't remember the last. We were just in here 2 weeks ago?
Yeah,
with Rita. But podcasting is kind of a little bit addictive.
Yeah,
and
it is.
I do miss it. I miss. I was like, man, I wonder what James is doing. And so it's like, let's get someone else. And get into the studio. Let's get to talking. But yeah, I am super excited for this block. And James, I won't spoil all the fun, but when will we ever see the studio again?
This is actually the last time we're ever recording in this studio because September 24th, we start moving into our new office down the hallway by the elevator. Those double glass doors right off the elevator.
So nice.
Oh, man. October 1st, we officially take possession of our new office. We will have a brand new studio in there that will be made available to all of McKinney's nonprofits, as well as RiskWell's clients and channel partners and whatnot. We are dubbing the conference room over there the Where Unique Happens conference room.
Love it.
Yeah. So more information on that. By the time you listen to this episode, we will probably be a week or two away from the new office. You'll see a lot more content there. But we've had a lot of fun in this studio, and this is the last time we're recording in this studio.
Right.
When we record for the October block, we'll be in the brand new studio. So, but enough about that. I'm really excited to welcome our guest for this episode, Mr. Rick Grady. Rick is a candidate for the Collin County Judge election that is coming up next March. And I have to thank Allison Monroe, our friend here locally. She's been a guest on the podcast. Allison introduced me to Rick and made sure that I was at his campaign kickoff event that happened at the Guitar Sanctuary about a month ago now. I think it was the very end of July, right?
Very end. It was July 31st.
There you go. Rick, welcome to the show, man.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
I anytime I get the chance to have a first-time one-on-one with somebody, you and I spoke very briefly that night. You had a lot of handshaking and kissing babies to do. You were definitely the man of the evening, of course. But as I'm listening to you talk for roughly 20, 25 minutes on stage about what your platform is and what you believe and why you're running and all of that, it's very compelling, honestly. And then Allison and I had spoke before about, trying to get you on the podcast to spread awareness of your campaign and what you're trying to do. But, as I'm sitting there in the audience listening to you talk, I'm like, even if Allison hadn't suggested this, we've got to get this guy on the podcast. Like, he's got good ideas. I like the way he sounds. Clearly has a heart for the people of Collin County. So, man, I'm just really glad that we're able to get on your calendar here. So,
Thank you.
Rick, I'd love to start with your background. You have had a long and distinguished career. You've got a lot of things that you've accomplished in your years on this earth and in your years in prior elected office. You've served in executive leadership in several different organizations. Why don't you just catch us up, just kind of the bullet points of how you got to this chapter of your life, and feel free to share whatever you want. Family, anywhere else you've done, whatever you've spent your time on that you feel is important for our audience to understand your background.
Okay. Well, it's good to be in the studio. I haven't been in the studio in ages. I used to do a top 40 rock and roll show on a commercial radio station.
No kidding.
Had a paisley shirt on and hair down below my shoulders.
Okay, so which market were you in?
I was in Madison, Wisconsin, which was a college town, and then that was at WISM.
Wow.
And then I was at WCFL in Chicago.
Wow.
Which was the voice of labor in Chicago.
All right.
Okay.
So, a couple of really good stations. WCFL was up against WLS. WLS obviously won out in the ratings. And so when WCFL changed to middle of the road, all of us decided we're going to hit the road. And many of us went back to stations we were at beforehand. So
were you
to WLS?
Were you a disc jockey or airtime personality?
I called myself a disc jockey. They call them airtime personalities today, but I was a disc jockey. I had 45s in front of me and turntables, and I was spinning them.
So more music than talk.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely correct.
So do you have a all-time favorite rock band? Is there one that you would point to?
If I was going to point to anything, it was Motown. I played a lot of Motown.
Okay.
That was not on our playlist. But
That's an interesting take from Madison, Wisconsin. I wouldn't have guessed that.
well, it was a college town.
Yeah.
And so from 6 to 8 in the evening, it was high schoolers that were listening to it. And then from 8 to 10, it was the college set that was listening to it. And they wanted to hear Motown.
Yeah. So I'm guessing Motown, that's a little bit before my time. I'm guessing it's like the Temptations and stuff like that.
Temptations, the Supremes, Michael Jackson, many of the artists that we equate today all came out of the Motown studios in Detroit. They would then travel from there to Milwaukee and then to Minneapolis and back again. And Madison was in the middle of this circuit. So
wow.
Every once in a while, you'd see Sam and Dave come in with their entire band and play.
Wow.
It was fantastic to.
They don't make music like that anymore, do they?
Oh, they don't.
Wow.
So do you still have a record player?
I do.
Music just sounds different on a record player, man. Yeah. It's more organic.
Yeah, you had to have precision. You can't just press play. You have to lay if you had an advanced turntable.
Well, we'd have to have a lot of 45s. So if you gave us a 45 on the air, you had to send us about 10 copies because we would cue it up with our finger on the needle.
I'd just sit there.
And then just sit there with our finger. And when we wanted to start the music, we'd release the record and would spin on the turntable. But in doing that, you got a scratch on the beginning of it.
Sure.
So after about a week, you threw that copy away and put a new one on.
Wow. And kids, anyone younger than 40 has no idea what you're talking about.
I know it.
Yeah.
It's absolutely amazing. Although my son-in-law bought me a turntable for Christmas so that I had one that could digitally record the music.
So you go from being a classic disc jockey. What next?
Well, I went into the corporate world. So I was working with EDS. That's what brought me to Texas and stayed with EDS for over 20 years.
What's EDS?
EDS is Electronic Data Systems, and it was run by Ross Perot.
Okay.
So up until about 1986, Ross was our CEO, our chairman of the board. And then after 1986, we were owned by General Motors. That started in 84. And General Motors owned us until 92 when we spun back out and became a separate corporation. And then Les Alberthal was our CEO. So I stayed with that until 97, 98, somewhere in there, and went on to a couple of other high-tech companies during that period of time. But my hunger at that point was doing a lot of work in the community. And that's one of the things I learned at EDS was we did a lot of what we would call payback and pay forward. So if we weren't working on civic projects in our divisions, then Ross was wondering if we were doing anything for the community. He was a really big supporter of various organizations. He wanted people in our organization or in any division to be big supporters of the community that we're in. And so he enforced that into everyone and that was part of your review is what were you doing for not only the people that were working for you, but what were you doing for the community? And he wanted to hear about that. So I got involved in that quite a bit. That was an easy transition for me because military life, when I was in the military prior to my disc jockey days, really kind of taught me a lot about taking care of people that were in your command.
Yeah.
And so spending 2 years in Vietnam and in the jungles, having people that were in the firing line along with me, it was, how can I take care of them better? And what can we do to get them in, get the job done that we need to do, get them back home?
So you skipped over an entire chapter. We started the disc jockey days. So you had a combat deployment in Vietnam.
For 2 years. Yes.
Thanks for your service, man.
And what did you do over there?
My first year was with Military Assistance Command Vietnam. That was the military intelligence wing of the military.
Wow.
And it was a joint command, so it was all 5 forces. It was the Army, the Marines, the Navy, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard, because the Coast Guard did serve in Vietnam. And so our job was to collect intelligence, bring that back, analyze it, go out and gather more intelligence, and be able to spread that to all of the divisions through all of the South Vietnam area, so that they understood what may be coming their direction.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not sitting at a desk somewhere, like you're in the field.
We're in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's
what
two
we
different versions of intelligence.
Yeah, it's what we called going over the fence.
Yeah.
So we were in areas that the president could deny that we were in those areas.
Plausible deniability.
That's exactly what was happening.
Yeah.
And then my second tour was with First Aviation. So I had a company of pathfinders and forward controllers. You would probably call them air traffic controllers today, but they really didn't spend most of their time in a tower directing aircraft or in-flight directing aircraft. We used usually the ones that were in those areas were ones that we called short timers. We didn't want them in the field anymore. They really wanted to go home. The ones that were in the field were the pathfinders,
the forward controllers and whatnot.
Our job was to put a radio on our back, go out with the infantry unit, and be able to cover our platoon with air support.
Close air support, yeah.
So that was a pair of binoculars in one hand, and
the radio was the most important piece. So in the radio, connected ourselves with what we call flight watch above our head, or covey, and their job was to understand what was in the air and what was in the air, what were they carrying. So that if we needed something, we could make a call to them. They would call out to the aircraft, and we would give them the coordinates.
That was before the A-10 came out. So was that the F4 Phantom?
We would have loved to have the A-10.
Oh
there.
man,
yeah. The Warthog is an absolutely beautiful, dynamic machine.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
that Avenger cannon
Strike fear.
We had World War II, what they call World War II Sky Raiders.
Oh really?
And they were low-flying, single-engine aircraft that were just loaded with all kinds of
napalm and cannon.
Yep, they usually carried napalm, 250-pound bombs, 100-pound bombs. They had several 50-millimeter guns on them. Some of them were mounted with cannons on them. And then we had, of course, the what people typically refer to as puffs. And those were the ones that were CH-47s. They had 3 Gatling guns or rotary machine guns.
That was the dual rotor helicopter, right?
It was. We called them
Chinook.
Spookies.
Yeah.
Yeah, we call them Spookies.
My dad was military before I was born. I was born and raised and appreciate, all the things military, and just crazy respect for anybody who put a uniform on. So, there's obviously, I say that, but there's 2 levels of respect, of course. There's one level of respect for anyone who puts the uniform on in any capacity. And then there's a second level of respect for those who serve in that uniform in a combat deployment in the field. And yeah, you fed both of those boxes, man. So I salute you in the most sincerest way possible.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
And the fact that you didn't even bring that up, like we had to circle back to it, that tells me what kind of humility you have in that service. You weren't just waving a flag and touting it as if it's some part of your resume.
Right.
And I have even more respect for that, man.
Okay, so you in all of your combat duties there, you were coordinating a lot of people. So you were working with a lot of people.
Yes.
And I did a little bit of digging, and you have a special place in your heart for PTSD and
I do.
Combat veterans.
Yeah.
So tell us about that.
Well, when I came back, I wasn't the most pleasant person in the world. And I went back to a college town, Madison, Wisconsin, which was a highly liberal town. And
did you get all the
Lots of war protests.
all the spit and hate on you for putting up uniforms?
It was beautiful. There was people that would walk away from you like you were, carrying some communicable disease.
How many times were you called a baby killer?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
All over the campus. I was pretty much a target.
Yeah.
For about the first 3 or 4 months.
It's wild, the ignorance at that point.
And I can remember I was visiting with my fraternity brothers when I went back. I thought, well, I'll go back down to the fraternity house to see the fraternity brothers, and they said, let's all go out to one of the local college bars. So we went out to the local college bar. An individual kind of zeroed in on me, and I think the short haircut, the tan, the rugged look, I think that he kind of zeroed in that I just came back from overseas. And he came up and he said, "Hey, are you a veteran?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Let me buy you a beer." I said, "Sure." He went over and bought a beer and came over and just poured it all over me. And that was his protest. So I just, you just kind of look at them and you just kind of say, what can you do? I mean, you just,
They just don't get it.
They don't. So it was different, but I think the toughest time, and I still carry today, I have it even on me today. I have a little black folder in my pocket that carries all of the names of the men that I lost. So there were 105 of them, and their names are all up on the Vietnam Memorial Wall. And then I carry their story that I wrote in very fine print, but I have their hometown and the day that they were born and the day that we lost them and what they were doing. And I carry that wherever I go.
Incredible.
And okay, so did I read correctly that this actually turned into like a mission for you, and so much so that you received? Is there an award?
Well,
for you,
in 2017, Congressman Sam Johnson gave me the Congressional Veterans Commendation for the work that I was doing in the community.
Wow. Okay.
And it was it goes to those that were either in the military or are veterans. They were in the military, and now they're doing a lot of civic work. And he recognized that. That was about maybe 3 years before we lost him. So it was a really good honor to be with him. He spent an awful lot of ugly time in the Hanoi Hilton and in various other prisons in North Vietnam. When you shook his hand, you realized that every single bone in his body had been broken at one point in time. You could feel it, and so it was. It was a very humbling experience to be with Sam at any point in time.
How about that?
I never had the pleasure of meeting him.
Great man. I mean, he was great man, great family. I still see his daughter Beverly because she lives in the area periodically. But he really served this country well, and he went through a lot of very difficult time. Obviously, if you spend 7 years in a POW camp, in some very unpleasant experiences, it's going to change you the way you look at life.
Sure.
Yeah.
And so for you yourself, you said you came back and you weren't a very pleasant person.
No.
Tell us about how did you cope with that? How did you deal with that? Because I'm certain that within our viewing and listening audience that there are people, I mean, we know people that have PTSD, many formally diagnosed, many who, don't even know that they have it.
Some are undiagnosed. They're just struggling in silence.
You can just, know that there's an issue there. So for you, what was it that made the difference? And how did you come from there to where you are now? Because, you obviously you've got it together. Obviously, you have this heart of compassion for those who've served or who are going through this. What was your road to success?
When I came back, we didn't recognize post-traumatic stress at the time. It wasn't a label. My dad, who was in the Army, would relate it to battle fatigue, exhaustion,
shell shock, type stuff.
And that's the way it was pretty much labeled. And there was no service for that from a medical standpoint. When I came back and realized that going back to the campus was not my best choice right now, maybe later, but not right now, I decided that what I needed to do was to get away. I was a downhill racer before I went into the service. So my dad said, "Why don't you go skiing?" Because it was about October, November. And he said, "Why don't you go skiing? Go skiing for the weekend, take a week, spend some time on the slopes and just kind of relax and be away." So I said, "Sure." Grabbed my skis and my boots and my coat and all my paraphernalia and left to go skiing and came back 6 months later.
That's a long weekend.
I skied Wherever there was snow, from the East Coast to the West Coast, I skied every slope I could get to.
Okay.
And that helped a lot. I just got out and was by myself, skiing some of the big runs that we used to do, especially in Colorado, in California, that we would practice on for downhill racing. And so it just came, that life came back. And appreciation of things that are around you came back. So it was I think a big of a change from me, from the standpoint that now I look at things a little bit differently as to how can we preserve that? How can we preserve life? How can we take care of things that are going on around us? It's not just me. And so it was kind of a spiritual thing to me to just get back into the backwoods, ski, listen to the snowfall, listen to wildlife in the evening howling, watching the elk move in Montana. It was a really humbling experience on just getting back to nature and realizing I could take care of this. I just needed to wrap myself around it, and I did. So when I came back, I was pretty well changed. I was kind of a mellow guy. And so when I got back, surprisingly, after 6 months, and my dad called me about 2 weeks into this, and said, "Where are you?" And I said, "I'm still skiing, and I may not come back for a while." And he said, "Fine, just keep us informed because your mother's worried."
Yeah, all right.
So I would call back periodically and say, "Hey, I'm still here. I'm still with you. But I'm in Vermont, or I'm in Colorado, or wherever it might be, wherever the snow was good to ski."
Mm-hmm.
And that was sort of a self-doctoring
Okay.
in a way.
So abruptly fast forwarding
Yeah.
a few decades, to kind of digress to where we were earlier in the story, you leave EDS, you serve on a couple of other technology-facing companies. At what point did you first decide, you know what, I think I may want to get into public service and elected office? Because here's the rundown of how Fred and I do things.
Yeah.
Fred does all the research. I do no research at all. And I'm committed to coming into a conversation knowing as little as possible so that I can discover right alongside our audience, so that my questions can be as organic as possible. So Fred's always much better informed in these conversations. At what point did you run for public office? Because you served on Plano City Council, if I remember correctly, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Walk me through, you are a technology executive, you're involved in running companies and whatnot. How did you decide, you know what, I think public service is something I'm going to spend some of my time on?
I really had to take a look at it from changes in my life that were going on at the time. I was a single dad, had to take care of my daughter and make sure that everything was going well for her. And so in about 2005, I am now a bank lobbyist. I'm working with an organization. We're advising community banks and credit unions and small financial institutions, small billion-dollar financial institutions, on how to maneuver and survive in the marketplace as we're going along, not knowing that when I joined in 2005, the market was going to fall out from underneath us. That the housing crisis was on an ebb at that point in time, and that the global markets were going to crater 2 years later. So that was part of the study. I think that was eye-opening for me from the standpoint that I saw a lot of people get really hurt from a financial standpoint, from the mortgaging industry standpoint, from a housing standpoint, from a governmental standpoint. A lot of people suffered a lot in the nation, and certainly here in Texas, when the housing industry fell. And although we didn't feel as much in the state of Texas as you saw in other places like Nevada and California and many other states, we did feel some of that. And we didn't recover from an economic standpoint to 2010. I felt that I needed to do something more in the community. So in 2005, while looking around, I was talking with some individuals that I knew that were on city council at the time. And they said, why don't you get involved in boards and commissions? And they said, one of the things that I would recommend is getting involved in the Community Relations Commission, which hands out grants to nonprofit organizations to do work in the community, things that government can't do, or government doesn't have the money to do, or government doesn't have the knowledge to do. So I started with the Community Relations Commission, and we had about $2-3 million a year every year to hand out to nonprofits. And I began to realize how nonprofits just really struggle in life, and how they are, organizations that are doing really good work down at the lowest level of what I call the Maslow hierarchy of needs. They're at the bottom rung. They're helping people that don't have enough income to have food, don't have any transportation, have health issues that are sometimes very devastating, are unemployed, are homeless. All of the individuals that need a lot of help get their care from all of these nonprofits, and the only way to continue that care is to provide them funding. And that kind of touched me a lot to take a look at it and see we can have a really wealthy society, we can have a really wealthy city, we can have a really wealthy county, and yet we have people that live right across the street from us that are suffering. And we need to do something for them as much as we need to do something for us. So it's much more of what I would call a spiritual awakening of the Good Samaritan. And so from 2005 to 2009, 2010, somewhere in there, I stayed on the Community Relations Commission, working in that community, finding out what do we really need to do to help everybody in the community. There are people that can help themselves, and then there are people that cannot help themselves at all. And so really what I did was I took a look at, a lot of the things that were going on. And I spent a lot of time talking with all of these people that were in the street, people that were had good or fair employment. I'm not going to say good employment. They had fair employment, but they couldn't afford putting meals on the table for their kids. And that to me just really touched me. So short time later, I wanted to stay on community relations. The city council, each individual called me and said, we think you need to get onto planning and zoning. Take a look at how the city is developing, how the city is growing, how, what we really need is people that have experience in the city. And so I joined planning and zoning and was on planning and zoning for 4 years from 2011 to 2015, and then decided I would run for city council.
Okay.
And I won my first election and won my second election. So I spent 2 full terms. At that point in time, in the city bylaws, you have to step off for a period
You termed out.
Yep. But
so that's from 2015 to 2023.
That's correct. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can I pause for a second and ask the COVID question? Because as a little bit of foreshadowing, when we get to the Collin County Judge part of the conversation here in a few minutes, the first time most of us really had firsthand experience with the role of county judge was during COVID. We'll get to that in a little bit. Whether it's Clay Jenkins in Dallas County or Chris Hill in Collin County, you are seeking to unseat in this upcoming election. The COVID question was probably the leadership challenge of our generation, regardless of what your capacity was, whether you're a company executive, whether you are just a rank and file worker in a company, or in your case, you're an elected official in charge of running a city. Talk to me about the COVID challenge as an elected official, where your decision-making impacts hundreds of thousands of constituents. Talk through that as far as the way that you guys made choices, you individually. How do you go about balancing the need for public safety, for health and wellness of a community, without overstepping and infringing on people's freedoms and all of those very complicated decisions that you were a part of in early COVID?
Mm-hmm. I learned something in the military a long time ago, and that is that when a disaster happens, the very first thing you need to do is you need to assess what the situation is. You can't make good logical choices and decisions until you have assessed what's going on, understanding what the situation is, and then begin to formulate your plan as to how you're going to get out of that situation. Obviously, in a combat situation, you have to make those decisions very quickly.
Yeah.
In the COVID era, we didn't know what we were dealing with. We really did not know. There was a lot of information that was coming out, but one of the things that we did know is that early on, if this virus struck you, it had devastating consequences. It could be everything from a serious respiratory issue to lung failure to organ failure to death. And I lost my wife then in that. She was a physician assistant taking care of patients in 2020 that were coming into the hospital that had COVID. And so they wore these things that were giant hazmat suits. It looks like they were, coming in from some scientific Ebola experiment or space suit, but it had its own air conditioning, its own air supply, and everything else, so that they could work with patients that were critically ill. And if you ever saw them, probably something more than the audience wants to know, if you ever saw an individual and what this virus did to a human being, you would be astonished and aghast. You'd be very upset because it tears cells apart. And you eventually shrink to look like a skeleton covered with skin, is the only way I can describe it. So she contracted it while treating patients, and within a month was gone. So
Wow.
that's how fast we were realizing that COVID was a very devastating virus, and we had no solution. We were trying all kinds of things. There were all kinds of things thrown up on the table as you do this and do that. The best thing that we felt that we could do at the time was just halt everything in place. Try to assess the situation that we're in, cause everything to just stop for the moment, and then begin to unwind it over time as we came up with solutions. Certainly one of those solutions was don't wear masks and wear gloves because we knew it was airborne. And if a human contracted it, just talking in a room spread the disease from one person to another. So we knew it was airborne. And we knew that it would go through the nose or mouth by inhaling. And then as soon as it did that, it would immediately go into the lungs and begin its work. And that work was to break down every cell that it ever attached to. So it would impregnate the cell and then explode. That would cause the virus to spread, and that's how it lived on humans. Again, we didn't have any serums until early 2021. And they were, I would say, I don't want to use the word concocted, but they were invented very, very rapidly, much more rapidly than any serums were ever for any other kind of virus or bacteria.
Yep.
And at that point in time, we realized, okay, now we can start opening things up a little bit more. We knew there were some things that we had to do. Our police and fire still had to be out on the road. You can't lock everything down so your police officers are locked at home or in a station. Your firefighters are not leaving the station. And so we had to come up and devise new ways to take care of people. The ambulances that you see the fire departments had, we had to identify a set of them that would be hazmat. And every time they went out on a run and picked up a individual and took him to the hospital, they were completely sterilized. The entire machine, inside and out, was sterilized. And the fire department was also given these hazmat suits with separate air breathers, so that when they went into a home to somebody that was deathly ill, they could move them into this ambulance and take them to the hospital, where they were then quarantined in a special
in the
room.
COVID unit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was pretty ugly.
Yeah.
We knew that we couldn't have a lot of mass gatherings because it would spread even faster during mass gatherings. We had to shut that down until we had something we could combat it with, which was any kind of vaccines that we had developed at that time, and then begin to slowly open things back up. We had to realize that, people had to make a living. They had to earn an income, that they still had to put food on their table. And you saw a lot of changes that took place during that period of time, where you could drive up to a grocery store and they would bring it out, put it in your vehicle without you ever getting out. You could order it and they would deliver it to your door. That businesses switched to Zoom at the time, or Microsoft Teams, or other vehicles that did the same type of communication. So we changed a lot of things, and some of the things that we still use today came about because of that.
Yep.
And we still use Microsoft Teams and Zoom and many other aspects of it. And people still get food delivered to their doorstep from the grocery store.
Or curbside pickup, which is my wife's favorite way to shop.
Yeah.
Until they substitute for a different brand without telling you.
Well, yeah, it is. And, my only concern was I'm picky when I go through and select produce. And
Oh, yeah.
Sure.
I want to do that.
Yeah.
So
It's very interesting, the point you made, because I think that really is the biggest positive, if there is such a thing in a globally devastating pandemic. I'm not going to spend 1 second talking about the political implications and conspiracy theories and was this intentional, was this some sort of global whatever. I'm not going to go into any of that. I know that there's a lot of people that have very strong opinions on the back end of the COVID thing. What I will say is that whole experience for everyone alive forced innovation and forced evolution in a way that I don't know if anything has in the last couple of generations of human history.
Mm-hmm.
It's separated those who are prepared and agile and able to adjust quickly from those who are not and pay a penalty for it. I think from a leadership perspective, that's one of the most interesting things about that period of time is those who are able to think quickly and make decisions quickly, decisively, and then execute on those things. Well, you see what happened. And, here in McKinney in particular, I can't speak for Plano. I didn't live in Plano during all of that. Some of that I did. Actually, I was a citizen in Plano from 2016 to 2022, actually. So I did live in Plano during most of the time. You were my councilman during one of my councilmen. I'm not sure which district you were in. So I digress there. I just spoke incorrectly because I'm like, wait a second, James, you lived in Plano for 6 years. It's like, actually, yeah, we didn't move our home to McKinney until 2022. Would have liked for it to be a lot sooner, but hey, it happens the way that it happens.
Sure.
Everyone's in control there. What we saw during COVID was radically different in McKinney than most places.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of that speaks to the leadership of city staff, city manager Paul Grimes, and the way that then Mayor George Fuller and then City Council was very intentional and restrained and methodical about the way that they utilized their power. And to see the juxtaposition of the way things went in Dallas County with Clay Jenkins doing things that garnered him national attention for overreach, for being overreactive, of literally like forcibly shutting down that lady's salon. I remember that made national news during COVID, and she was somewhere in Dallas. It was like leadership's posture in crisis events. That single thing changes the entire nature of the conversation. If the citizens can point to leaders being intentional and restrained and being very methodical about the way that they prepare so that when a crisis event happens, boom, you can make the right decision because you prepared ahead of time. The people that don't prepare, that don't think things through, that don't have their philosophies, their workflows, their procedures, emergency management and whatnot, all the things that go into it, you can see the people that have prepared adequately ahead of time. And it seems like, oh my gosh, were they lucky? How did they just, no, they were prepared. They were ready so that when the moment happened, they sprang into action much faster than their peer group.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So when it comes to, dealing with the person in front of you. So combat, you dealt with someone in front of you. Coming back to Wisconsin, when I don't know if you reenacted or inspired scenes from Roadhouse, you dealt with someone in front of you. All right. And then as, in your position there with the city of Plano, you're dealing with someone in front of you. There's a crisis going on. And, you say that you take inventory of all these things. How are you always in a state of what's going on and how am I going to, are you always taking inventory of what's happening in front of you? Because I imagine during the COVID crisis, when the inevitable shutdown came along, you probably had some pretty hot people in front of you.
We had some concerned people on Zoom for a while. And that was obviously intentional because we couldn't meet as a group in a city council chamber.
So how do you let the people know that you hear them and that you care? What's their approach?
Here's a couple of things that I learned over time. Number one, they've got something on their mind and they want to say it. So don't interrupt. Even if your opinion is not their opinion or your political philosophy is not their political philosophy, they have a right to speak and they have a right to their opinion and they want to put out their opinion. And if you respect them as an individual, then acknowledge that they have that right. And then if you're going to ask them a question, it is to clarify what they said. In a city council meeting, whenever there's the open public speaking at that point in time, you can clarify what they've said. You can't make decisions on that because it's not posted on the agenda. So by Texas state law, you would then have to take that item, determine you'd like to place it on a future agenda, and then place it on the future agenda so the public has an opportunity.
Open Meetings Act.
Open meetings.
Yep.
But acknowledge where they're at. They have a concern. They're obviously spending their time to bring that concern to you. So acknowledge it. If you need more clarification, ask for that clarification so that you can note that. I have also found when I was in sales a long time ago with EDS, and you're talking with a client and they're giving you their issues or problems, recap their issues or problems so that you totally understand what their position is and try to place yourself in that shoe. Again, you may agree with them, you may disagree with them, but they have the right to say what they're saying. So capture that and then try to understand exactly why they're coming from that position.
Okay, so with that in mind, you're running for the position of county judge.
County judge.
So you have someone who's already in place who is loved and or hated by the community.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously the ones who are not in his camp, they're like your, let's say, easy target, right? But for those who are, firmly embedded with your opposition, knowing that, what you just shared, that, you want to listen to them and not interrupt and all those things and understand where they're coming from, put yourself in their position. Why should people vote for Rick Grady?
Well, I think that I have a different set of qualities. First, I have more hair than Chris.
Oh, he went there. Oh, my word. Well, that says it, boy. Folks, there you go. That is the whole election right there. Who has more hair?
My approach is different. And I would say, even if you're a fan of the current judge, watch the proceedings from the bench, and see how he treats individuals from the bench. Take a look at the last budget session, especially from the standpoint of, was he working with his departments, or was he working against his departments? Did he understand what their appeal was for various things, or did he get into arguments with those departments?
Yeah.
I'm a big public safety guy. And one of the questions that I always had when I was on city council, and our fire chief or our police chief would come up and they would present their budget. One of the questions that I always asked was, what is not included that you need? What is not included that our officers need on the street? Because they're trying to be good stewards of taxpayer money as well, and they may, during their deliberations, determine they're going to leave some things out. And one of them that came to mind a while back was ballistic vests, the type that stop rifle rounds, not pistol rounds. Usually police officers are wearing a vest underneath their shirt that will stop a pistol round, but it will not stop a rifle round. They have to wear a different vest for that. They used to be very heavy. They're a little bit lighter now. They're ceramic plates, but still, it was not in the budget. But I knew from the officers that there was a big discussion because the bad guys had rifles. The bad guys didn't use pistols. They used automatic rifles. And so we had to make sure that our officers were equipped to walk into that type of situation. So we had to make sure that the budget included that. That was an expensive item, so we had some discussion. It's the same way with our county budget. What does the sheriff and the deputies need? What do the constables need? What do the bailiffs need? What do the detention officers need in order to be able to do the right job that we're asking them to do? So if we only have enough deputies to cover
that's it right there.
50 square miles, we've got 500 miles in this county of unincorporated area. We have enough deputies on each shift for one deputy to cover 50 square miles. If we looked at that from a city standpoint, say the city of McKinney, which is 63 square miles, or Plano, which is 72 square miles, that would mean that you'd be able to cover our cities with 2 deputies in McKinney and 2 deputies in Plano. Well, that would be unacceptable to the people that live there. Now, I understand there's a greater population, but there's stuff that happens in the county.
For the good of the audience, there are more than 100 patrol officers in McKinney Police Department.
Yes.
So, yeah, we're talking about a factor of 50 in shortage.
That's correct. And we need those officers. And they have to be trained. You have to hire them. You have to train them. It takes a while to get them trained.
Yep.
You get washout during all of that process because they don't pass the exams. They don't pass the physicals, whatever it might be. There is a washout during that process. And you end up, I can tell you, in the city of Plano, from a police department standpoint, we might have 60 officer candidates that would start in on the examination portion. And we'd end up graduating 8 to 10.
Really?
Yeah. because of the strenuous work that you have to go through and all of the things you need to know. Even though you may have passed the written portion of the exam, you've got to pass the practical portion of the exam with a training officer. And at any moment, the training officer can say, no, not going to work out for us. Didn't respond to the situation correctly, put somebody else in danger, whatever that may be. And it's the same way with the fire department. I don't know if there are many people that can take a roll of hose, which weighs a lot, put an air tank on, put your bunker gear on, and then walk up 20 flights of steps to pass an examination that you can get up to the top of a high-rise building with the equipment that you need to battle a fire.
So, Rick, in the last few minutes of this interview, I want to pivot real quick and ask you a hypothetical here, because when I think about the most important collaboration between a county judge and the other executive leaders that you would be responsible for working with in a productive way, first and foremost, obviously, is the county commissioner's court, the other folks that sit on the bench with you. Secondarily to that would be the mayors of the cities in Collin County. And I think one of the most illuminating things that I've seen with my research of conversations that I've had elsewhere in other meetings and whatnot, mostly off the record, of course, is when you hear from the other mayors, other than just George Fuller, of course, when you hear from Allen and Plano and Princeton and Anna, Melissa, et cetera, the mayors in an office currently, on the record, off the record, whatever, share considerable concern about the ability to successfully collaborate with Judge Hills currently in office and seeking re-election. How would you, as county judge, approach the collaboration needed? What's your philosophy in working with other elected officials, other county commissioners, the elected mayors, because you're not a king. You are not a monarch. You don't have absolute authority as county judge. Regardless of how Mr. Jenkins down in Dallas County might like to think, you are in fact not an oligarch. You don't exercise unilateral authority. You have to be a good team player in order to get stuff done. How do you as county judge approach the most important collaborations that the citizens of Collin County need you to make?
You go out and meet them. When I was the president of the Texas Municipal League District 13, which is 4 counties within this region, my job was to go out and meet with all the mayors and talk to them about their cities and what their cities need. Because I had to convey that as a board member back to the Texas Municipal League as to what we needed up here, what the cities need up here from a legislative standpoint. What do we need to have up here? So my approach of it is to go out and meet with them individually and jointly. Individually to get them to know them as a person and their individual needs for their individual cities and towns and municipalities. And then jointly bring them together to find out collectively, what do we need to do in this county to raise the level, to have a budget where we're not fighting with each other at the dais because we don't like what the numbers are telling us, which was the current fight with the budget as it stands today, was the numbers don't match. We got rid of a lot of revenue, and yet our expenses continue to climb, and we're wondering why we have a deficit. That's a easy business equation. But my approach has always been, let's go out and talk with the individuals individually, learn what they have to say from not only a judge's standpoint, but from the commissioner's standpoint. And then let's get them together periodically. Maybe it's once a month, maybe it's once a quarter, whatever fits best in everybody's schedule to find out, what do we need to do? What do we need to do to attract businesses here? What do we need to do from the housing standpoint? What do we need to do from safety and security? And what do we need to do from a financial standpoint so that we don't have what we have today, which is a financial crisis looming us in the face in a county where we say it's one of the richest counties in the United States, yet we have a budget at the county level that has more expense in it than it has revenue in it. And yet we built 11 new structures that the county now owns. And I'm going, that's great. If we had to put some people into those buildings, we have to populate them. And maybe we built those with Biden money, federal money that came through ARPA or wherever it maybe came from. But now we own the buildings, and now we have to maintain them, and we have to populate them. And 9 of them are buildings you put people in, and 2 of them are parking lots. So we've got 11 new buildings on the campus. So we increased our expenses, but we're trying to figure out how to reduce our revenue. And I'm going, that I didn't learn that in business school. We need a better balance from a budget standpoint.
And the only mechanism to grow revenue at the county is through taxation.
That is correct. But you also can...
Which obviously is a very hot topic.
It is a very hot topic. It really is. It means being able to really understand what a $500 million budget really means. Mm-hmm. Those are the type of budgets that I was used to in corporate world. The budget for the city of Plano was $750 million. And we had many more moving parts than they have in the county because we had many more things in the city of Plano than they have in the county. But it was 1.5 times larger than what we have here in the county. Yet we still had great reserves to take care of those things that would come up. And we had a great strength in our budget where we weren't at the end of the year looking at some kind of deficit, which, if Moody's or Standard & Poor's catches that and you're issuing a bond, they'll look at that and go, I don't know if you have the strength there to pay the bond over the 20 years.
Yeah. So
instead of a AAA rating and a very low interest rate, we're going to give you a AA minus, which is a higher interest rate, or worse.
Yeah. I think one of the most alarming things as we kind of wrap up this conversation, and Fred's going to hit you with our final question here in just a moment, was the manpower shortages in our public safety side of things.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, we could literally 10x the sheriff's deputies force, and we would still be talking about one individual human responsible for 5 square miles of county land. And that's a lot of county land, boys and girls. Mm-hmm. That there, even if we 10x the deputy force, you still will be looking at a lot of responsibilities for each individual deputy. And that, granted, I don't live in the county. I live in the great city of McKinney, the greatest city that's ever been built on planet Earth. But still, for the folks that live in unincorporated county land, that's got to be very alarming.
It's that land plus any land that's outside of the jurisdiction of the city.
So ETJ would be included in
ETJs and MUDs.
Yeah.
So if they
including all of Trinity Falls.
That's right.
And if you go down to Josephine, down in the southeast corner of the county, it's surrounded by municipal utility districts, and that's draining the resource off the city. So. Yeah. You're looking at not only police and fire, but you're also looking at water, and you're looking at storm drains and sewers, and having a water district that takes care of all that stuff. All that has to be in place.
Yeah.
As you grow, and this county's growing by, some estimates are 120 people a day, some estimates are 200 people a day. It's still a lot of people are moving into Collin County every single day. And they need housing, which we're short of, and they're putting the strain on the roadways, which we need to fix, especially 380. And they're putting strains on the water systems, the electrical systems, the gas systems, the management of gray water that is returned from the house to be recycled at some point in time. All of that.
I feel like there's at least another full conversation to be had here. We're about out of time.
Just double up on
just to make sure that people understand kind of the bigger picture here. Chris Hill has been explicitly invited to this podcast at least twice that I'm aware of, potentially 3 times. And as of yet, he has not taken us up on that invitation. So, Chris, I know you and your people are probably going to be hearing this episode. So I will say, hey, man, the door's still open. We'd love to have you sit here and give us your perspective on things. I can promise you an unbiased and fair conversation. You're not going to be walking into the lion's den. You can ask Dr. Matt Rostami how we handle those sorts of conversations where there is perceived bias. I can assure you there is none of that in this studio. So for Chris Hill and his folks, the door's open. We'd love to have a conversation with you, because at the end of the day, we are not advocating for any specific outcome in this podcast. Our whole reason for existing and having Rick Grady on the show is to make sure that you, the loyal listener and watcher of this podcast, have the necessary information so that you can make an informed decision about your life and who you want to vote for to represent your interests, in this case, for county judge. And that's all I'll say there for my soapbox or apple crate, whatever you want to call it. Fred, you want to hit with that last question?
All righty. Okay, James. Cue the music.
Here we go.
Okay, Rick. Who wins in a fight between a giant polar bear and a great white shark? They're in a body of water 6 feet deep of infinite dimensions. There's no sandbar, no shallow end, no shore. It's just infinite water. Who wins in that fight? Giant polar bear, great white shark.
Depends upon how much the polar bear can tread water.
6 feet deep.
Yep. Is the shark itself can live in there and pull all the oxygen it needs and all the strength it needs from the ocean.
Yep.
And the polar bear has to pull it from the air above the water. So it would be an interesting match. Polar bears can survive very cold weather. Sharks cannot. So that's an interesting. I'm going to bet on the shark, though.
Oh, shark.
Team Shark.
There we go.
Another one for Team Shark.
There we go.
Shark's been on a run the last couple of months, man. Goodness. Fred, any last words from you, man?
No, I'm excited for what you bring to the contest. I was actually thinking, James, like I took a little mental vacation. Wouldn't it be awesome if we had a debate?
You ready for another debate?
Yes.
Well, there's only 2 contestants as far as has anyone else thrown their name in the hat?
There were rumors. I was at the Republican Labor Day celebration yesterday.
Yep.
Was that South Fork?
It was at South Fork.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And there was great debate that there might be another or 2. I thought it's a great rumor, but I don't see anybody pushing any paper. I haven't personally seen anybody saying I'm going to run.
Well, the election day, when is it in March? It's like the first week of March, right?
February 17th with early voting.
Okay.
And then early voting will stop right at the end of February. And then March 3rd is in person.
It's it's my son's birthday. So that one's easy to remember.
That's right.
That's a Tuesday, right?
That is a Tuesday.
Okay. They usually vote on Tuesdays.
It's the first Tuesday of the month. It just happens to be.
Wait, is that Super Tuesday in 2026?
I don't think it's going to be. It'll be Super Tuesday less some.
Okay.
I would say when you have a presidential election, you get a Super Tuesday.
Because 26 is a midterm year.
Maybe it's right. Super Tuesday adjacent or super-ish Tuesday.
One thing I will say, and this goes, again, going out to Mr. Hill's people, I'm totally down to have that conversation with our friends in the political establishment. There's a lot of stuff going on in that side of the conversation. But I think an event sometime in mid to late January would probably be very timely to have. There's a lot of eyeballs on the county judge race at that time.
Sure.
But the folks that want to collaborate with us, Fred and I are down to moderate that debate. We've done that a time or 2.
That's right. Hey, you know what? Let's ask our audience out there. You know what? Chime in the comments. Let us know. Would you love to see a live debate between Chris Hill and Rick Grady?
I'd buy popcorn for that.
Oh, I'd
tell you what, if I'm not the moderator, I'm still in the audience.
That's right.
Because I want to see that.
Sorry, we'll live stream it if they.
Oh man, I'm telling you. Hey, Rick Grady, thanks so much for being here today, man. I really appreciate your time. Your information is on the show notes of this episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, check the description below. What's your website for those just listening in the car?
GradyForCollinCounty.vote.
GradyForCollinCounty.vote. That's a new one. Okay, GradyForCollinCounty.vote. And that's it for this episode of the McKinney Podcast. Check us out next time, ladies and gentlemen. Make it a great day. We'll talk to you soon. Y'all take care.